I was up at 6, same as always. Made the coffee just how Jenna likes it. Dark roast, splash of oat milk, no sugar. Packed her breakfast wrap and typed up a couple of her meeting notes from the night before. She'd left her laptop open on the dining table, 3 tabs with strategy briefs still half written. She was probably too tired, or just figured I'd handle it. Upstairs, I could hear her alarm go off. Once, twice, then a third time, while I rinsed blueberries and wiped crumbs off the counter. She finally came down at 7, face puffy from sleep, phone already in her hand. "Where's my navy blazer?" she asked, not even looking up. "On the hanger in the laundry room," I said, drying my hands on a dish towel. "Pressed it last night." She muttered thanks under her breath, walked past me, and adjusted her necklace in the hallway mirror like I wasn't even there. Then she said, "Make sure the house looks good for when clients swing by next week." I told them we're clean freaks. I nodded, didn't say a word, just watched her heels click down the hallway as she headed for the garage. The front door slammed 5 seconds later. I stood there in the kitchen, coffee cooling in my hand, and for a second, I wanted to throw the mug across the room, but I didn't. I just sat down and stared at the fridge like it held answers. It had been years since anyone asked me what I wanted to do with my time. That part stopped mattering after our son was born. I was in finance back then, mid-level analyst at Breyer & Co., getting groomed for VP. I had a future, one I'd earned. But Jenna got pregnant, and when she went back to work after maternity leave, her career took off like a rocket. Promotions, conferences, strategy boards, the whole ladder. Fast. Meanwhile, daycare costs were bleeding us, and Jenna's salary had doubled. So we made a temporary decision. I'd stay home, just for a while. Just until things settle, she'd said. Things never settled. I became Greg, the guy who stays home. PTA guy. Grocery run guy, lunch packer. I was background. No one asked what I used to do. They just assumed I'd never done anything else. But I never stopped thinking like a numbers guy. I kept reading quarterly reports in between laundry cycles. I skimmed Vanguard's earnings calls while folding towels. I watched the shifts in ownership like a hawk. Talon Equity started in the basement. Nothing flashy. Just an LLC formed from the remainder of my old bonuses and a slice of my father's inheritance after he passed. Then another holding. Then another. I knew how to stay invisible. I made sure no name tied directly to me. By the time Jenna hit her 10th year with Vanguard, I'd funneled enough assets to start taking real positions. Quietly. 1% here, another there. Just enough to stay under radar. Nobody notices small investors, but they should have. Because over the course of 6 years, I picked up 51%, then 53, eventually 61. 61% voting shares. While Jenna thought I was binge-watching crime dramas on the couch, I was making strategic acquisitions through shell companies so clean they'd pass any audit. She didn't even notice. Never asked why I stayed up late. Never cared what I was typing when she came downstairs at 2 in the morning. She assumed I was bored, depressed maybe. Maybe a little sad and grateful to have such a powerful wife. She told people I was the emotional support system that let her chase her dreams. Said it with a smile, like it was noble. Meanwhile, I was building something behind the curtain. Every time she came home with another joke about how Kyle's wife couldn't even make a casserole, or how lucky she was to have a husband who didn't mind being domesticated, I nodded, smiled, cleaned up dinner, but I never forgot, and I never forgave. That night's dinner was at some trendy steakhouse downtown. Private room, velvet walls, enough wine flowing to make it feel like a celebration. I showed up 5 minutes early, like always. Jenna walked in 10 minutes late, like always, surrounded by her team. Laughter followed her in, like perfume. She waved me over with a quick smile and said, "This is Greg, my husband. He keeps our house running." Then laughed like she was proud of it. Not in the cute way either, the dismissive kind. Like I was a Roomba that did taxes. I caught the look one woman gave me, half pity, half smirk. Jenna didn't see it, or didn't care. Kyle zeroed in on me quick, probably 2 bourbons deep already. His voice was loud, his confidence louder. "Greg, man, you've got it figured out. Sleep in, walk the dog, maybe catch up on The Bachelor." He laughed at his own joke, slapped my shoulder. "What's that feel like? Knowing you've got the good life while Jenna's out here closing deals?" I smiled thin. "It feels like peace." But he wasn't done. "I mean, you don't miss work? Like actual work? I get itchy just taking a 3-day weekend. You ever tried doing laundry for a family of 4 and keeping a mortgage company running in the background? I asked. He blinked. Mortgage company? Long story, I said. He just laughed again and turned to Anthony, the CEO, who had just arrived. This guy, man. Greg's living proof that being a trophy husband isn't all bad. He probably cooks too. People chuckled. A few actually clapped. Jenna covered her mouth with her napkin, laughing harder than anyone else. Then Kyle stood up, clinked his glass with a spoon like he was hosting a damn wedding. The room got quiet. Let's raise one for the real MVP tonight, he said. Greg here, proving it's totally okay to retire in your 40s, if your wife's rich enough. The laughter exploded. Some guy down the table called out, "Hey Greg, you do the dishes too?" Jenna was doubled over, wiping tears from her eyes. I sat there, hands in my lap, ears burning. Part of me wanted to walk. Another part wanted to hurl the steak knife at the wall just to shut them all up. Instead, I picked up my glass, raised it high. I'd laugh too, I said, voice cutting clean through the noise. If I didn't own the majority of your company, the silence was instant. You could hear a fork drop. Literally, someone dropped one. I turned to Jenna. Her smile dropped off her face like it had been yanked. Guess I forgot to mention that, huh? Kyle froze, face draining to a ghostly white. Jenna didn't move. Her hand was still in midair, wine glass inches from her mouth, like time stopped mid-sip. Anthony leaned back in his chair, napkin falling to his lap, staring like he just saw the market crash in real time. I didn't wait. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. No one said a word. The room was too stunned to catch up. Outside, the cold night air hit like a reset. The second my feet touched the sidewalk, I felt it. Solid ground. First time in years. My pulse slowed, my jaw unclenched. I took a deep breath and felt my ribs actually expand for once. I walked 2 blocks in silence, past valets and tourists and downtown noise. But none of it mattered. I finally said it out loud. Let them chew on it. Let Jenna figure out how she missed it. Let Kyle sit with the fact that he just mocked his boss at a company dinner. All I did was tell the truth. No more pretending. No more playing the supportive husband while they laughed behind my back. I let them believe I was harmless. Background noise. But background doesn't own controlling shares. It doesn't schedule board meetings, and it sure as hell doesn't smile while burning the whole system down from the inside. I took the long way to the parking garage just so I could feel what it was like to walk tall again. I got home first and left the hallway light on. I didn't sit, didn't turn on the TV. I just stood in the kitchen, leaning on the counter, waiting for the door to open. My hands were still shaking a little, but it wasn't fear. It was leftover adrenaline, the kind that makes your teeth feel tight. At 11:15 on the dot, Jenna's car screeched into the driveway. A second later, the front door flew open hard enough to rattle the frame. She stepped inside still in her sequin dress, heels half buckles, hair wild from her hands twisting through it all night. She slammed the door behind her. "What the hell did you do?" I didn't move. Told the truth. She marched into the kitchen, eyes sharp and wet. "Truth? You humiliated me in front of my entire team, in front of my boss, in front of half the industry. I didn't humiliate you," I said. "They did. You laughed with them." "That's not the point," she snapped. "You blindsided me. You blindsided everyone. You don't own anything." "I do own it," I said, cutting her off. "Controlling stake, since 2018, through a blind trust." She stopped cold. Color drained out of her cheeks. No, you're lying." I walked to the drawer in the dining room, pulled out the folder I'd tucked away years ago. Thick binder, black cover, tabs neatly labeled. Set it on the table between us. Names of the shell firms, purchase history, voting power agreements, breakdown of every acquisition, and the emergency board meeting I scheduled for Tuesday. She stared at the binder like it might explode. "You went behind my back," she said. Her voice cracked, but it wasn't sadness. It was rage. "You betrayed me. You betrayed me," I shot back. "For years, every joke, every dig, every time you let them treat me like dead weight. That's not betrayal," she said, stepping toward me. "That's just, you're taking everything out of context." "No, I'm finally putting context back where it belongs." She shook her head so hard her earrings hit her neck. "You made me look like a fool tonight." I stepped closer. "Jenna, I've felt like one since our son was born, and you didn't care. Not once." She flinched at that. Just a tiny movement, but I saw it. I opened the binder to the first page and pushed it toward her. "Every document is real. You can have the whole thing." She didn't touch it. "You planned this?" she whispered. "All of it. You waited to humiliate me." "No," I said. "I waited to be respected. You chose humiliation for both of us." Her breath hitched, but she didn't cry. Jenna never cried in front of me. She just pressed her fingers to her forehead, like the room was spinning. "When were you going to tell me?" she asked. "When you stopped treating me like an assistant," I said. She backed away, bumping into the counter. "I can't even look at you right now." "You don't have to." She grabbed her purse off the chair, then stopped at the bottom of the stairs like she wanted to say something else. For a second, her mouth opened. Then she shut it again and walked up without another word. Her door slammed, hard. The echo carried all the way through the house. I stood there alone in the hallway, binder still open on the table, her wine glass from this morning still on the counter, the whole house humming with the kind of silence that feels alive. After a minute, I grabbed a pillow and headed to the guest room. The mattress creaked under me as I sat down, kicked off my shoes, and turned off the lamp. Upstairs, I heard another door slam. I didn't follow. I didn't call her name. I just closed my eyes and let the house settle around me as I stayed exactly where I was. I barely slept that night, but I was up before 6 anyway. Showered, shaved, dressed like I was heading to war. Because in a way, I was. By 8 sharp, my attorney James pulled into the driveway, black Audi, right on schedule. 3 others followed in separate cars. Suits, briefcases, laptops, all business. We walked through the side gate and straight into the garage. I'd cleared it out the night before, set up folding tables and a portable whiteboard. The old treadmill sat in the corner, dust-covered and untouched, like the life I used to have. We didn't talk about it. James cracked open his case and got to work. "All right," he said, spreading folders across the table. "Let's talk exposure." They laid it all out. Expense audits, flagged vendor payments, travel reimbursements with no supporting docs, sketchy HR complaints that got quietly closed. Kyle Madsen, of course, was buried in red flags, from inflated expense reports to hush money paid out to an intern who'd filed a misconduct complaint 2 years back. The girl had been transferred to a different department. No investigation, no paper trail on record. James dropped a folder in front of me. "We send this to the board Tuesday morning, 2 hours before the vote." "That's the window." I nodded. He tapped another tabbed section. "These are the backdoor bonuses Anthony greenlit without shareholder approval. Over $1 million in unreported perks. Private golf trips, vendor kickbacks, real estate deals with partner firms." The room was dead silent, just the sound of pages flipping and highlighters scratching. At 9:17, the door into the house banged open. Jenna, still in her robe, barefoot, face flushed. She stormed down the 3 steps into the garage, eyes locked on James. "This is my house. This meeting is over." James didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, you're listed as an executive officer of Vanguard Digital." "Damn right I am." "That means you're now a conflict of interest," he said, voice calm, even. "This is shareholder business. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." She froze, just stood there, blinking. It hit her hard. Not the legal language, but the shift in control. She wasn't the one giving the orders anymore. "You're serious?" she asked, voice thinner now. "Yes, ma'am." She opened her mouth, then shut it, turned on her heel and walked straight back into the house. No slamming this time. James glanced at me. "You good?" "Better than I've been in a decade." He nodded once and went back to flipping tabs. For the next 5 hours, we built the strategy. Timeline for public release. Talking points for board members. Paper trail mapped down to the invoice. This wasn't revenge. It was cleanup. I didn't feel joy or guilt, just focus. These weren't people who made a few bad calls. They were people who got comfortable because no one ever looked under the rug. Well, I had been down on my knees vacuuming that rug for years. I knew what was under it. At 3:40, James slid the final draft of the release across the table. "We'll push this out Tuesday morning, 6 a.m., via our media contact. By 9:30, everyone in that boardroom will have a copy. By 10 WAU, you make the motion." I stared at the cover page. It didn't feel like a plan anymore. It felt like a reckoning. I didn't say anything. Just grabbed a pen and signed off at the bottom. The signatures made it real. The date stamped it into history. They'd see tomorrow I wasn't passive. I'd just been patient. Tuesday morning, I walked through the front doors of Vanguard Digital for the first time in nearly a decade. Same glass walls, same reception desk, same smell. A mix of printer toner and stale coffee. My shoes echoed across the tile, and I didn't slow down. The security guard stood when he saw me, puzzled. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" James stepped up beside me, calm as ever. "We do." He handed over a stack of paperwork with my name printed in bold across the top. Filed with corporate, effective as of 6 a.m. this morning. The guard scanned it, eyes wide, then picked up the phone and nodded. "You're clear. Take the elevator to 12. Conference room A." We rode up in silence. James adjusted his cufflinks. I didn't bother. I just watched the numbers climb. The elevator dinged. I stepped out first. Outside the boardroom, 2 assistants froze when they saw me. One dropped her pen. No one said a word. I pushed open the doors. 10 board members sat around the table. Jenna was already there, sitting far left, near the end. Her face was pale, eyes red. She didn't look at me, probably hadn't slept. Anthony, the CEO, leaned back in the chair at the head of the table like he still owned the place. I walked in, calm and deliberate, and handed out binders one by one. Nobody spoke. Inside each binder, full audit results, Kyle's Vegas charges, hotels, escorts, cash advances on the corporate card, payouts to fake vendors, backdoor bonuses, and right there on page 16, a breakdown of how Jenna funneled corporate funds into our kitchen remodel under client hospitality upgrades. When I finished, I stood at the head of the table and let the silence drag. Anthony cleared his throat. "Greg, I don't know what this is." "You don't?" I asked, looking him dead in the eye. "Because it's pretty clear to me." He tried again, leaning forward now. "There's gotta be some misunderstanding. I'm sure Jenna—" I cut him off. "Jenna's promotion was approved with Talent Equity's vote. That vote came from me." That shut him up. I turned toward security standing at the door. "Please escort Mr. Madsen and Mr. Reeves from the building, effective immediately." Anthony's face flushed deep red. "You don't have that authority." James stepped forward, flipping a page in his own binder. "Per controlling interest, Mr. Talbot has full executive authority to restructure leadership pending board review," which he has. Security didn't wait for another word. Kyle looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. He stood slowly, glancing at Jenna like she could save him. She didn't even look up. Anthony tried to protest again, but one of the guards just stepped forward. That was enough. He stood, muttering curses, and walked out without looking back. The doors clicked shut behind them. I exhaled once, then looked directly at Jenna. She stood slowly, arms trembling. What happens to me? I took a second, not to think, just to let the moment hang. "You stay on," I said, "but you report to a newly appointed CEO. You're not out, just demoted." The word hit like a gunshot. Jenna's legs buckled, and she collapsed into her chair without saying a word. Hands flat on the table, eyes glassy but dry. She stared at nothing. The rest of the board didn't move. I nodded to the woman across from her, Ellen Park, the only one in the room who hadn't laughed at me at that dinner last quarter. "You'll be serving as interim CEO," I said, "effective immediately." She blinked, stunned, but nodded. "Understood." I looked around the table, pausing at each face. The old guard let rot grow under the surface. This isn't just a cleanup. It's a reset. Any resistance to transparency will be treated as resistance to shareholders. Starting now, everything changes. No one spoke, not a cough, not a shift in a chair, just silence. The kind that means people finally realized they weren't in control anymore. I didn't bother sitting. I turned, pushed the door open myself, and walked out without looking back. Let them sit with it. Let Jenna sit with it. I'd spent years being polite, quiet, helpful, the invisible man with the lunch bag and the carpool schedule. By noon, it was everywhere. Bloomberg first, then Reuters, then it exploded. Anonymous investor ousts executive team at Vanguard Digital. They didn't have my name yet, but it didn't matter. Twitter, Reddit, LinkedIn, all of them were on fire. Every tech blogger and armchair analyst had a theory. Some thought it was a hostile takeover. Others thought it was some Silicon Valley billionaire making a move. Then someone leaked the boardroom footage. It took less than 4 hours for Kyle Madsen to be trending. His expense reports from Vegas, The clubs, the escorts, the shady casino reimbursements were all over the internet. Screenshots, voice memos, internal emails. It was a bloodbath. At 3:30, Jenna called me. I let it ring. She called again and again. 7 times total. I didn't answer once. She didn't leave a voicemail. She didn't need to. I sat on the back porch with a beer I didn't finish. Phone lighting up every few minutes. Text after text from employees I'd never even met. Thank you. You don't know how bad it's been. We thought nobody up top gave a damn. You gave us hope, sir. The real kind. Some of them were anonymous. Some signed with names and titles. One guy from IT said he almost quit last month after getting written up for asking about shady billing. Said this was the first time he'd felt proud of where he worked. I stared at the screen, letting it all come in. Not with pride, not with revenge, but with a kind of quiet I hadn't felt in years. The house behind me was silent. No arguing upstairs. No fake laughter over speakerphone. Just the wind through the trees and the occasional hum of traffic out on the boulevard. For once, I didn't feel like I had to justify my day. I didn't have to explain why I was tired, or why I needed space, or why someone mocking me in public actually cut deeper than a joke. That night, I made a frozen pizza, ate it on a paper plate, didn't even bother with the TV, just sat outside and let the sun go down over the fence like I used to back when things made sense. When the last message came through, some intern in marketing thanking me for reminding people that power doesn't always look like power, I finally turned my phone off. I stood up, stretched, let my neck pop from all the tension that had finally started to leave my body. Then I went upstairs. No lights on in the hallway. No movement behind Jenna's door. Just the house, still and untouched. I climbed into bed without checking the time. The sheets were cool, and the pillow finally felt right under my head. And I slept. Not the kind where your brain keeps buzzing. Not restless, not alert. Real sleep. The kind you earn. By Friday, Jenna had packed her things and moved into a condo down near the river. Said she needed space. Time to process everything. She didn't give a timeline. I didn't ask. 2 days later, Ryan flew in from college. Said he wanted to talk face to face. I picked him up from the airport. He barely spoke the whole drive home. Just kept looking out the window like the answers were somewhere in the skyline. We sat at the kitchen table, same spot where I used to quiz him on vocab words and make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. Now he was 6 feet tall, 19, built like me, but with Jenna's eyes. He didn't touch his coffee, just looked at me and said, "Mom's in shock." She said you blindsided her. I nodded once. She's not wrong. She said you planned it for years. I did. Without telling her? Yeah. He ran his hand through his hair, exhaled slow. Why? I leaned back in the chair. Because I supported her for years, Ryan. I stepped back so she could go forward. I made her breakfast, ironed her clothes, watched her walk out the door to rooms that never had space for me. And every time people made jokes, she laughed. He didn't argue, just stared at the counter behind me. I sacrificed everything I was, I said, and I got mocked for it. He shook his head. But you lied, Dad, for years. I know, I said, and I won't pretend that part doesn't suck. The silence hung for a while. I didn't push it. He finally said, "You're not the only one who feels betrayed." I know, I said again. He rubbed his hands together, restless. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I really am. But, he trailed off. But you wish it didn't take all this? I finished. He nodded. Me too, I said. But I didn't see another way. He looked down at his hands for a long time. I hate that it had to be you or her. It wasn't supposed to be. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. So, what now? I don't know, I said honestly. She needs space. I'm giving it to her. That's all I've got. He nodded slowly, like he was still putting pieces together. She told me she doesn't know who you are anymore. I half laughed. Neither do most people. He looked at me again, more thoughtful this time. You know what's weird? I think I get it. All those nights you stayed up working on something and told me it was just bills? All the times you looked like your mind was somewhere else? Yeah, I said. That was me figuring out how not to disappear. He didn't speak for a bit. Then he stood, walked around the table, and hugged me, fast and tight, like it surprised even him. I'll keep in touch with both of you, he said. That's all I could ever ask. 1 week later, I stood on stage in the Vanguard Digital Atrium. Jeans and a navy blazer. No tie, no fanfare, no dramatic music. Just a mic, a podium, and 200 employees staring back at me, waiting to hear what the hell came next. I cleared my throat once. Some of you knew me as Jenna's husband, I said. The guy who brought banana bread to charity drives, who helped with event setups, who smiled in group photos like I belonged in them. A few people smiled quietly. One woman in the back nodded. I didn't. Not really, not back then. I scanned the room, a mix of suits, interns, admins, and engineers who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else but appreciated someone finally saying something real. I started talent equity 6 years ago in my garage, while I packed lunches, while I did laundry, while I got told I was lucky just to be around success. I kept my head down, but I kept building. Because I believed in two things, this company and the people in it. I paused. Let that land. You deserved better leadership, not louder, not flashier, just better. So that's what we're doing now. People straightened up. I'm not here to be your boss. I'm here to make sure your voices are heard. Starting today, we're forming employee-led councils. One for company perks, one for internal culture, and one to keep leadership accountable. You vote the members in. You decide how they run. That got a couple raised eyebrows. A few glances across rows. I motioned to the side of the stage. This is Ellen Park. She's been running ops better than any exec in this place for the last 2 years. Effective immediately. She's your interim CEO? Ellen stepped forward and gave a short nod. No big speech, just presence. That's why I picked her. And Jenna, I continued, will remain as VP of Strategy. She's still here, just not in charge. I looked out across the room one last time. She's not your voice anymore. There was no cheering, no whooping or applause breaks, just steady clapping. Firm, real, not polite, grateful. And it was enough. When it ended, I stepped off stage and headed toward the side exit. Halfway there, a young woman, maybe 23, graphic designer, judging by the tablet in her arm, stopped me. My mom was a stay-at-home parent, she said. She always felt invisible. Thanks for showing people that doesn't mean they're nothing. I looked her in the eye. I know exactly what that feels like. She smiled. I nodded once, then kept walking. That was all I ever wanted, to not be nothing.